and hear me well. If there are problems with hearing and viewing, please let us know and the moderator will help you. We'll be using English for communication today, even though the presentation is in Russian, just in case. We are training our learners towards Cambridge exam in English, and it's proper for us to use the English language for communication. The subject for today is developing receptive skills in learners, training them towards international Cambridge English for Young Learners exam. We'll be using dedicated materials developed by methodologists from Cambridge Center, and also a course book Starlight that you may already know, and a new course book City Stars with electronic portal as additional materials for preparation. Since there are no alarming signals that there are problems with the picture with the voice, I understand that everything is okay. And let's continue. This is the general internet address that can take you to the necessary information on the internet regarding Cambridge English exams. It will give you or the parents or school students, primary and secondary school, the necessary idea of what the Cambridge exams are about and which is the best way of training learners towards this exam. Also, I'm using the QR quick response codes that can take you right away to the necessary sites. Now the oh yes, the picture wouldn't move for some reason. It takes time to operate the presentation. And here, using this link, you can easily access free Cambridge sample papers that will give you a better idea of what the exam is about for preliminary A1 level starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers. Just to give you a quick picture of what the level roughly corresponds to, I'd like to say that pre-A1 starters, that's primary school, and A1 movers, that's something like grades 5 to 7 secondary school, and A2 flyers, roughly speaking, grades 8 to 9 secondary school, because graduates of the Russian 9th grade are to achieve the level of A2 Common European Framework in English. And using this link above on the top of the page. You can easily access the sample papers. Before we start, just a minute, I want to make sure that I haven't skipped the page. There is a problem of listing the pages this time. But before we start, I'd like you to answer some questions by simply typing yes or no in the chat. Have you ever taken a Cambridge exam, any level, yourself? Please write yes or no, and we'll wait. No. So you don't have any personal experience in sitting. Oh, yes, one. There's just one yes, and oh yes, one more yes. But mostly we don't have sufficient experience for sitting such exam. I myself sat an exam that was years ago. That was not English for young learners. That was Cambridge Proficiency, of course, because I'm teaching at the university. But Cambridge exams for young learners are certainly a very important step in one's language career. Have you had any experience in training your learners towards Cambridge exams, any level? If you indicate the level, that would also be interesting. Have you any experience in training your learners towards Cambridge exam, like flyers, starters, movers, flyers, first certificate? Yes, preliminary English text, PET. Yes, no. Yes, from starters to first certificate English. So among us, there is a very experienced teacher. Oh, yes, to a high level. Yes. Yes, of course, there will be certificate. You can download it. Yes, that's interesting, which means that we ourselves have not been very active in sitting the exam and taking the exam for young learners, and PET. Interesting, thank you very much. We are not very active in taking exams ourselves, but we are doing our best. We are doing our best in creating all the necessary conditions in training our learners towards young learners English. And there are teachers who have answered all the questions of this questionnaire. And it's noteworthy that a colleague has mentioned that he hasn't, it's a gentleman, it's a he teacher, has mentioned that he hasn't been using Russian course books in training towards Cambridge exams. We'll see today how Russian course books can really be useful, can contribute into training towards Cambridge exams, because Russian course books are the books that we normally use for secondary education, and it would be a great loss if we didn't use that valuable resource in training towards the exam. And there's another colleague, and she says that she hasn't been using Russian course books towards Cambridge exam preparation either. We shall see whether this resource can be put to good use in dealing with the exam training. And again, there is a problem with listing the page. Here it is. Let's consider Cambridge scale, the scale of Cambridge exams related to Common European Framework and our school level. If you take a look at the scale on the left of the slide, you will see that the preliminary A1 level corresponds to the starters exam. That's, as I said, primary school starters exam. And at this level, our learners can score up to 90 points, That's the level normally achieved by the candidates who study at a primary school students. If the students are at A1 level, and that's normally, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, students attending grades between 5 through 7, roughly speaking, they can score up to 100 on average, 110 points, and they can already sit exam movers level, and that corresponds to A1, Common European Framework. Also, if we are dealing with the 8 to 9 graders Russian secondary school, our students can already score on average 130 points, and they can sit Cambridge exam for young learners flyers level, which corresponds to A2 level Common European Framework, or some advanced 8-9 graders can sit key English test exam, key for schools, again A2 level. As you may have noticed, A1, A2, B1, and so on, these are umbrella terms, and within those levels you can also add plus or even 2 pluses, like A1 plus or A1 plus plus, depending on the more specialized, more subtle degrees of difficulty that the learners can cope with. B1 is the result normally for school leavers, 11th graders, and that are taking the basic English course, basic level, and the advanced level achieved at schools specialized in English language teaching and learning, schools and classes specialized in teaching English language. These can achieve the results of B2, and those graduates, already 11th graders, they are not young learners any longer, we are not talking about them today, can sit the exam such as first certificate for schools. We are not taking university level today, for sure. Perhaps the moderator will give a hint in the chat of what I should do to improve listing the slides, because I can't see the arrow. Here it is. It takes time. Computer today thinks for too long. Let's consider listening and reading combined with writing at the international exam, young learners English Cambridge exam, because these are receptive skills. But receptive skills these days, starting with the year 2018, are tested together with productive skill of writing. That's why we're saying listening and reading together with writing at the international exam. These are skills that are tested in the series of Cambridge English for Young Learners exam. And the participants, the candidates, are children aged from 7 to 12. The purpose of testing listening and reading together with writing is to assess the ability of candidates. Sorry. That's it. У меня нет, я не вижу стрелок на обычно в кадре, как это обычно бывает. Нет, я все делаю, но здесь просто нет стрелок. Мне приходится делать это курсором на клавиатуре, и он очень долго, медленно реагирует. Ну, давай, сейчас я обновлю туда. Ага, аудитория чуть-чуть меня потерпит, я обновлю страницу. А, вот здесь есть, все, everything is fine, все хорошо, спасибо. Да. So the moderator really helped me. I'm fully armed now. And the purpose is to assess these skills of comprehending written and oral text together with grammar and lexical skills. But the object of testing in this case is integrated skills. Integrated skills. Let's take a look at how testing listening and reading together with writing is organized. Listening is the first part of the exam, and it consists of 20 questions for the level preliminary A1 starters, lasts 20 minutes, 25 questions for the level of A1 movers, 25 minutes, and 20 questions again for the level A2 flyers, 20 minutes. Testing reading together with writing is the second part of the exam, which consists of 25 questions for the level pre-A1 starters, 20 minutes, 35 questions for A1 movers, 30 minutes, and 44 questions for A2 flyers, again, 40 minutes. As you see, the testing of reading takes longer, which means that this sort of skill is considered to be really important for young learners. I would agree. I would agree, because reading is a crucial skill in using English, both for language learning and a source of information that can be helpful in learning other subjects. There are some really important, crucial, I would say, skills of listening that we need to develop in our learners in order to enable them to pass the exam well. First of all, learners have to understand from hearing English names and words from a list. They have to understand description of people in the picture. What is meant here is clothes and appearance, look. Learners are to use prepositions, for example, in describing the whereabouts of a character or an object in the picture. Learners are to be able to spell the words or to write the words spelled letter by letter from hearing. And this is an interesting and important task. Learners are to be able to selectively color a certain section of the picture with the right color. They are not to color the whole picture, but they are to be attentive. They are to listen to the description of the picture and to color selectively exactly what is said. That's interesting, because that helps to train in our learners attention, which is an important universal cognitive skill, what we call универсальное учебное действие, attention, especially important in the primary school. And some additional sub-skills, like to understand the instruction to the test and to follow the instruction. Again, very important, because even higher school graduates sometimes neglect the instruction. To write numbers, letters, and words, and this is also basic but important skill that some learners may miss. And to draw lines, to connect the necessary words and objects. Let's take a look at the example from the exam training pack available if you follow the link that I showed at the beginning of this presentation. That's listening, preliminary A1 level start exam of the under the category starters. That's preliminary A1 level. Listen and draw lines, and here you have to draw lines between the object, the kid that is doing something with this object, like flying a kite or playing with a ball or doing something or reading a book. Whatever you listen, you draw lines correctly. And this is a task used at the exam. Very important task that will be useful for our children, not just at the Cambridge exam for young learners, but all these matching activities that will be helpful up to ЕГЭ and ОГЭ and ЕГЭ, Russian national exams in English, start to be developed at this stage. Another one. Read the question, listen, and write a name. Here children need to be able to write a name or a number. They have to write numbers clearly, distinctly, and correctly. And there are two examples. What is the new girl's name? The girl that is new to a certain school or classroom. Kim. How do children know? They listen to the text before. How old is the new girl? 8. Only one word or one number answer. What is Kim's family name? Where does Kim live? In what street? Only one word answer. This is an instruction, and the children should be able to understand the instruction. One word answer, not 2 words, and follow it. What number is Kim's house? What is the name of Kim's horse? How old is Kim's horse? Children need to be really attentive, apart from knowing the language, of course. Another task. Listen and tick the box. There is one example. What animal has Alex got in his bedroom? The answer is given. Then, which picture are May and Sam looking at? And then the children listen to the description of the picture, paying attention to tiny details. Again, attention development, attention management, attention control. These are very important skills at this age. We are talking about primary school students, and they tick the corresponding box. Or, what are Mrs. Good's class doing this afternoon? What are they doing? Are they swimming? Are they playing football? Children are to listen to the text. Here I would like to comment that class in this case is a collective noun which is coordinated with the verb in the plural because it consists of many children. Class can also be coordinated in the singular if we take class as a whole. It's just for teachers a remark in case there might be a question. This is the task that I, for some reason, like more than others. Listen and color, but color selectively. Do not color the whole picture. And this helps the examiner assess how focused children are in listening to the text and how attentive they are to comprehending details and how correctly they comprehend, understand what they hear. Listen and color. There is one example. A certain section, certain fragment of the picture has already been colored. Let's now listen and color what we need to do. Let's take reading. Reading. Preliminary A1. I'm concentrating mostly on primary school because this is the most difficult area of training towards young learners Cambridge English. Why? Because students at this stage lack learning skills. One thing is that they might lack language skills, but what is even more essential from my experience is that students lack learning skills. They can't learn. We are to teach, we are to train them, to get them acquainted with the exercise formats, teach them how to be attentive to the task, how to follow the task. So reading, preliminary A1 level starters. Part 1, 5 questions. Look and read. Put a tick if yes, or a cross if no, in the box. There are 2 examples. These are grapes, yes. This is a house. Of course not. Of course not. It's not a house. It's a mouse manipulator, computer manipulator. And then more questions follow. Part 2, 5 questions. Look and read. Write yes or no. Here children are to write yes or no. Not other words, just yes or no. Let them be attentive. Let's remind them that they listen to the text and they are to give their answers not in words but in yes or no. There are 2 armchairs in the living room. Yes. The big window is open. No, because the big window is closed. It's the small window that is open. Let our children be attentive from starting with the primary school. Again, pre-A1 level reading, integration of reading and writing. Part 4, 5 questions. Read this. Choose a word from the box. Write the correct word next to numbers 1 to 5. There is one example. Now, the box is not here. The box is in the exam material, but it's there. Lizards. Lots of lizards are very small animals, but some are really big. Many lizards are green, gray, or yellow. Some like eating. What do they like eating? We have to choose a word from the box, and so on. Now, part 5. Again, 5 questions. Look at the pictures and read the questions. Write 1-word answers. 1-word answers. Where are the people? In the kitchen. How many children are there? 2. And then the questions continue, and candidates give their 1-word answers. That's a very important skill because some of them have a tendency to give more than 1 word, which is a mistake from the point of the exam format. 1-word answer means 1-word answer. This is an important learning skill to follow the instruction. This is an indication of discipline. On the whole, integrated skills are very typical of authentic English language. Take a look at the tasks. Read this. Choose a word from the box. Write the correct word next to numbers 1 to 5. There is one example. So read and write. Read the question. Listen and write a name or a number. 3 skills together. Read, listen, write. Look at the pictures and read the questions. Write one-word answers. Read and write. I must tell you that there is an increased attention these days to integrated skills. And if you are aware, I'm sorry for these interruptions. If you are aware of the prospect version of OGE exam, integrated skills like integrated listening and writing, and also integrated skills with reading plus other skills are to be included in the prospect version of OGE, Russian national exam for 9th graders in Russia in English. They are to be included gradually, task by task, within 2 or 3 years. But already this year in the demonstration version, there is an exercise with an integrated skill. There are some important skills that I would recommend to focus on in training our students towards Cambridge English for Young Learners, and not only. Reading and comprehension of the general text message, the knowledge of simple grammar structures, the knowledge of parts of speech, number, grammar, tense, the ability to understand definition of words, the ability to write words from the recommended list, the ability to copy words from the table, the ability to fill in the missing information in the text, to answer questions in writing, to make up sentences based on pictures, and to write short stories. I'm talking now about Cambridge English for Young Learners, starters, movers, and flyers level up to the 9th grade. And there are some additional skills: understanding and following the instruction, writing letters and words, and drawing lines. This is an example from a course book, Starlight Grade 5, that gives you an idea of how listening skills, writing skills, integrated skills can be developed. Listen and find what the ancient Romans could do. Write complete sentences. Could they play football? Could they swim? Could they read? Could they write? Hopefully they could. Could they play the piano? That's interesting. Could they ride bikes? Let the children, but they could play football. That's for sure. Let the children listen and find the answer. Or story writing. First, children get acquainted with an example of the story, and then they get very important writing tip that will be useful at the Cambridge exam. Writing tip: when you write a story, you should start by setting the scene. Set the scene. Describe the scene. Describe the place, where, the time, when, the main characters, who, the weather, and what happened first. That's me. Set the scene and then you continue telling what happened next. This is from a course book, Starlight, grade 5. Another example, or a couple of examples, will be taken now from electronic portal to the new course book, City Stars, which is based on Starlight, but it's a new variant of Starlight, specially developed for the school students of Moscow. And many teachers across Russia are now taking cities, not only Starlight, but City Stars, taken to their classrooms, because it has a lot of new, interesting material. And besides, it has a free electronic portal, City Stars, free electronic portal. The electronic portal has the tabs for teachers, for learners, and for parents, and everybody will find the necessary information. And you can also find here your private page, your private space. This is one of the exercises, integrated skill of listening, reading, and doing the task. Listen and read the State Darwin Museum, and then read and complete, then listen and read. First read and complete without listening, and then listen and read. And in order to listen, everything is ready at this portal, everything works, everything is free. If you press this small arrow, you will be able to listen to the text. Also, if you want to record your answer, if your students get the task of recording the answer, that means that they will do the oral task and the teacher will be able to check the answer and to play it back, to play it either at home or in class. And they will listen to the information about the Moscow State Circus and complete the gaps. Integrated reading at the portal City Stars starts with the primary school, with the 2nd grade. For example, read the words and drag them to the corresponding pictures. It's very similar to what is necessary at the Cambridge Young Learners exams. For example, dinosaur, and we drag it here. I can't drag it now because I'm not online. It's a scan of the frame from the electronic portal, but in the electronic portal, everything works. Or where do the animals live? Look, read, and choose. And we choose the place where the animals live. And this is an exercise that trains learners' attention. What flavor of ice cream do these children like? Follow, find, and write. The flavors are given in the previous exercise, and the flavors are lemon, strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla. And if our children are careful, they may be able to find which flavor Vera likes, and it is vanilla. This is an important skill. You remember at the Cambridge exam for young learners, children have to draw lines to connect objects. and this is a useful preparatory exercise. To finish up, I would like to recommend you some interesting publications. They have been, some of them have been written together by specialists from Просвещение publisher and the experts from Cambridge English for Young Learners exam. And one article was written by myself. You are welcome. And the internet addresses are given here, and the QR codes for easy access are also provided. If you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Вопросы можно задать по-русски, можно по-английски, in English. Если есть вопросы, можете прямо написать их здесь в чате. Теперь уже они не потеряются. Я могу ответить. Где взять эту презентацию? Презентацию можно скачать прямо с сайта. Если вы посмотрите в правом верхнем углу, есть вкладка «Файлы». Вот презентация находится там. Thank you for the meaningful and important lecture. Thank you very much. You've been very good listeners and behaved well. However, I would have appreciated more questions, by the way. Hopefully we'll meet again. And thank you very much. We'll meet again. And now I'm giving the floor over to the next presenter, and is going to be an expert from the Cambridge English for Young Learners Exam Center. Thank you very much.
Пока говорите на 9:30, как все.
Good morning, dear colleagues. So we're going on. My name is Kиселева Евгения, and I'm a Cambridge Assessment English methodologist. Today we're going to talk about developing receptive skills for Cambridge Young Learners qualifications, and so we are going to talk about listening and reading. So first of all, I would like to have a brief overview of what Cambridge Young Learners qualifications are. So as you can see from the slide, we start at pre-A1 level. This is for starters. Then we have A1 movers and A2 flyers. So the exams are focused on all four skills, and these exams are for students of primary and lower secondary schools. So that's about from 6 to 12. So during this webinar, we are going to have a look of the required receptive skills and soft skills, speak about some strategies for teaching, and have a look at some preparation tips and activities. So let us start. Well, as I've already mentioned, these exams test all four skills, and today we're going only to focus on listening and reading. As you can see from the slide, there's a progression in time and a progression in the number of questions. So the higher the level is, the more questions you have, and consequently, the more time you get for that. So there are different types of questions in the exam, and we're going to have a look at what skills we need for them. So the most obvious would be listening for gist and details, listening for some specific information. Also, the skill which is required is a note-taking skill, and the skill of following spoken instructions. So this is the first part of the exam. It's a listening part, and in this part we have to match the person in the picture with his or her name. So the content of the picture, of course, will depend on the level of the exam. So for starters, something very basic, and quite a detailed one for flyers. So what skills do we need here? First of all, it's going to be listening for details, and such details as names, appearances, clothes, some action verbs. So all these things are to be considered. Also, your students should be able to identify the names, to be able to read the names, and please make sure they know that some names are for both, for girls and boys, such as Sam, for example. Let's have a look at the next slide and the next type of a task. So again, it's the same for all exam. This is part 2, when the most essential skill is listening for specific information and note-taking. Again, they will have to listen and identify numbers, names, and spelling. They need to complete the gaps here, and it's highly advisable that they, for example, write numbers in digits, not in words. What also is important, so spelling is crucial here, and make sure that if this word or a name or, I don't know, a number is spelled during the recording, it has to be spelled correctly, because otherwise they won't get points for that. So let's move on to the next type of task. This one only exists for movers and flyers. This is part 3. And this is when we have to listen for details. So as you can see, you have 2 sets of pictures. So students will do the multiple matching exercise. And again, focus on names and topic-related vocabulary. They will have to complete this. If you can see, there's a box. And so they need to write the correct letter there. Of course, there are some extras. So make sure your students know about them. Another type of listening task is going to be multiple choice, which is for starters part 3, and movers and flyers is going to be part 4. So in this type of task, they need to listen to specific information of various kinds. So what do you think? What kind of information do they need to listen to? Have you got any ideas here? And if you have, could you please write them in the chat? What kind of specific information do we need? Numbers of eyes, okay, yes. What else? Legs, okay, yes, true. So quite often we're talking about appearance here. So a lot of descriptive language, a lot of prepositions, action verbs, numbers. Yeah, true. How many ears the person, the monster has, colors. Absolutely, yes. Okay, great. Yeah, so it can be completely different. So you can never predict, but it's all within the word list, which Cambridge offers. So no surprises here. Just make sure your students know all the words from the word list. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Another type of a listening task, which is a bit different from the previous ones. Again, they have to listen to for specific information, and this type of task is the same for all levels. It's just the level of complexity that changes. And if we speak about starters, for example, there would only be like colors and prepositions of very, very basic. And for flyers, they will have some distractors, and they will sometimes have to choose between different places or similar, quite similar objects. Another part of this task, which is important, so your students should be able to follow spoken instructions. So the instructions are usually like look, find, color, and write. The difference between, there's another difference between starters and flyers, for example, is that for starters, you only color the objects, whereas for flyers and movers, you will have to write something. The place for writing is absolutely obvious. And again, spelling. Spelling matters if the word is spelled on the recording. Okay. When we teach receptive skills to young learners, we have to consider some features of this age group. And for example, I have two of them here. So it's going to be short attention span. We all know, if you have kids, you know that they're easily distracted, and the attention span is about 5 minutes if you're lucky. And if you're doing some active task, for listening, that would be probably 30 seconds or a minute. So make sure you know about it. Don't give them too long tasks. And very limited life experience, which might also cause problems for us as teachers, because we need to predict whether the student already knows something about the topic or not. And we need to find it out before we start listening. So these two factors are crucial for teaching receptive skills to young learners. They will be the same for listening and for reading, but now we're just focusing on the listening part. Okay, so I have here some examples of instructions that we as teachers sometimes give our students. But there's something wrong with it. Can you guess what is wrong and what probably can be improved? So can you type in the chat any answers? So what's wrong with number A? Well, any ideas so far? Okay, too complicated. Probably. Too much. Yeah, can you imagine even I don't know, a 10-year-old trying to figure out what the teacher wants? Too much. So what should we do to make it better? How can we improve it? We're talking about A now. Is there anything we can do to save our lives? Divide, I like that. How many parts would you make here? Clearer, okay. 3. 3 parts. I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, that is too much for a young learner. Thank you. How about B? What is wrong here? If you just come to a class and say, okay, listen and remember. Okay. These are actually real instructions, so I've heard them when observing some teachers, and, well, we all make mistakes. Should be more, okay. Do you think it's easy for a student, for a lower secondary or primary school student, to remember what he hears? Train something? No, definitely. I mean, if you listen to some lengthy text, even you as teachers with good level of English, and you listen to a lengthy text and you're trying to remember that, oh, I would hate my life at that moment, because no, I can't do that. Think about candidates, think about students. No. Okay, so be more precise, and please don't ask them to remember something. This is too vague. What about C? Anything here? So, is C okay? So can you just imagine that? Teacher opens the door. Too quick? Yes, okay. Formal. Uh-huh. Interesting. Well, honestly, I wouldn't say it's too formal. It's quite short and direct. No topic. In a hurry. Yeah, hello, just listen to it and goodbye. Well done, thank you. Okay, let's have a look at some qualities that a good instruction and a good listening lesson should have. So, they're kids. They probably know nothing. Don't know anything about rocket science or nuclear physics, things like that. So the only things they know is toys, some books, stories, parents. So quite a limited number of topics, and the tasks should reflect that. So make it real life. Don't ask them to build a rocket. Ask them to say hello to the, I don't know, teddy bear, and listen to what the teddy bear answers. So all the tasks for them should be real life, as close to life as possible. Another problem, and we've faced it in instruction A, there should be only one task at a time. Remember, short attention span, almost unable to multitask. So all this leads to one task at a time. You should have very clear instructions. And I wouldn't probably agree that number C was too formal. It was okay, was short and clear to some extent. Like, open the book, do this. Not very convoluted. This works. And there are two more features that characterize an effective listening lesson. What are they? Can you guess? What are C and D? So apparently you need to unscramble. Yeah. Imagine that you are taking a starter's exam. So, prediction. I like the question mark at the end. Could be. What about number D? Satisfaction is crucial. I quite agree here, but I'm not sure we have the letters appropriate to make the word. Okay. Dizzy. Well, poor little starters, they have to do it during the exam. So they sometimes have balloons. All right, let's try to have a look at the answers and see if you're right. Absolutely, with prediction, and D is scaffolding. So prediction, we needed to activate all the background knowledge that the students have, because remember, very little life experience, very little learning experience, and if you just, I don't know, throw the task into them, they will probably hate you. So activate the background knowledge. It's easier when you know what's going on, you know what's going to happen, and you have more chances to succeed then. If we talk about scaffolding, remember the very first instruction, the very lengthy one. So when we speak about scaffolding, it's the ability to break the instruction into parts, to put some shorter stages into your lesson plan. So you open the book, well done. then you listen to this, well done, then you do the next task, not everything all together. So I would highly recommend doing all these things during your lessons. Okay, so we're going to have a look at some preparation activities which are focused on a certain skill. So this one is going to be for listening for specific information such as clothes, numbers, colors, and such like. What are you going to do? If you have a class, it actually works with bigger classes and with smaller ones too. Just make sure you have enough information for them. So you divide the class into certain groups. One group should focus on just listening to numbers. Another one focuses on listening to colors, for example. The other one, names. Prepare a short story and read it out loud to your class. Ask your students to stand up when they hear the certain piece of information. So if the group has colors, they should stand up when they hear colors. If it's numbers, the same thing. It works well for developing listening for specific information. It helps you scaffold the task a bit because they don't have to listen and focus on everything there, just some certain things. So it also helps you if you have some kinesthetic learners, because they can remember better with some actions. And most kids still have very well-developed kinesthetic skills, so it works for them. As a follow-up for this activity, you can ask them to remember the story in their groups. You can ask them to take notes of the words they hear, again, within the certain context. And they might even try to reconstruct the story. Because, of course, it's very difficult to teach one skill at a time. There's always a combination. So as a result of listening, you might have some reading, writing, or speaking, depends on what you want. Okay. Spelling is also very important, as I've already mentioned. When a word is spelled on the recording, it should be spelled correctly in their exam papers. Otherwise, they don't get points. And again, for kinesthetic learners, for young learners, there's a nice activity which helps you with spelling. And I would like you to try it with me. So, just a short description. First of all, they close their eyes. You as teacher pronounce a word. With their eyes closed, they repeat the word. Then they have their fingers and they draw the letters in the air. So you spell it and they draw it. They also should repeat it after you. So a lot of things involved at the same time, I know, but it's easier than it seems. Then they repeat the word without the teacher, and then they have to write it down. If the word is too difficult, you can ask them to do it several times. And this is exactly what we are going to try now. So I would like you first to close your eyes and listen to me and repeat after me. So the word is not for starters, of course, but I hope you're ready. So, acquiescence. And one more time, acquiescence. Now please draw the word with me, the letters, and repeat. A, C, Q, U, I, E, S, C, E, N, C, E. Acquiescence. Too early. Okay. So now please try to focus and write the word in the chat. Just now, as you remember it. Can you? Okay, one person definitely can. Anyone else? Or at least compare. So this is the word. And I hope you got it right. Okay. Well, if you haven't got it right from the first time, you can try it again. I know it's a very long and horrible word. It's one of the most commonly misspelled words in English. So I prepared it specially for you. Of course, don't give it to your students. But as a result, I've tried this activity with many of my students, even with the ones who have problems with reading or writing. It really works because, again, a lot of systems are activated. So there's kinesthetic. You imagine the word, you imagine the letters, and then you write them. So it works quite well. All right, let's move on then. Another activity for listening for details will involve some drama. So you should just divide your group in two, and one of your group will get cards with some sentences, like you're sitting in an armchair drinking tea. So the group which has these sentences will need to demonstrate it, to mime it, as if you're just really drinking tea. At some moment, the teacher just says freeze, and they freeze. So they never move again, unless you let them. The other group gets a piece of paper with numbers, and they have to observe their classmates and reconstruct the details, the sentences in as many details as possible. So first they have to guess what the person is doing. Of course, there should be some context, but they have to guess what the person is doing, and they have to be able to reconstruct it. Again, as many details as possible. Okay. If we speak about reading and writing, why I have reading and writing here combined? Because for the exams, this part is given as one, but we're not going to talk about writing today, just the reading and the skills that we need for reading. So it's going to be, again, reading for gist and details, specific information, understanding relationships between utterances, important for functional language, and understanding sound symbol relationships. Again, that would be for your spelling. And again, when you're reading something, of course, you have some inner voice that dictates you what you're reading. So let's have a look at some tasks from the exam and the skills that we need here. So the first one is going to be starters. And this one should be reading for gist. They need to identify whether the description of an object in the picture is correct or not, and just put a tick or a cross. So nothing more. Okay. The next one is going to be reading comprehension. Again, for starters, part 2. They have a picture to create some context. Still, they need to read for details and identify whether the information given in the sentences is true or not. They will only need to write yes or no, no true, false, nothing of that kind, just yes or no. And this is comprehension on the sentence level. So again, the picture, the context, what's going on. Pay attention to prepositions, action verbs, and some descriptive language. For starters, part 3, so remember the balloons that made you dizzy? This is it. They have to reconstruct the word using all the letters given. Make sure they know that the number of dashes is the same. So they have to complete all, use all the letters that they have. And the number of dashes, identify the number of letters in the word. So everything to make them feel comfortable. This is when they have to understand the sound symbol relationships. What letter, what sound they get. Okay. So for movers and flyers, part 1, the task is a little bit more complicated. So again, it's going to be reading for specific information and matching the word to its meaning. As you can see, so on your left, you have a task for movers, again with some visuals. They still have visuals and words. And on your right, you can see a task for flyers, where no more visuals are given. You just have to read, understand, and match it to the description. Okay. Another multiple choice task for movers and flyers. They have some conversations. They need to understand the relationships between utterances. So here they should concentrate on functional language and some grammar. So make sure they know that if the question is in one grammar tense, the answer is usually in the same one. And some functions of everyday functions, again, real life tasks. So there's going to be something that you use in your real life. Okay. A gap text, another type of task, which requires reading for gist and specific information, both. So they will need to complete the gaps in the text using the words given. To support them, to make them feel more comfortable, again, they have some pictures. There are some extras, make sure they know about it. And if we read for gist, we also will need to identify which title is the best for this text. So they will tick the one which they think is correct. Another type of reading task, complete the text, reading for details and for gist both. And they need to pick the word which fits better, grammatically and lexically. And sentence completion, a task of a higher level for movers and flyers. They will need to read the text, complete the gaps using the words from the text. What's important here, you also have a picture for some prediction, for some activating the background knowledge, and all the information, of course, is given in the text. So they should be able to identify what is required from them and complete the sentences. Okay. So when we speak about reading, the basic rules are the same. Again, activating background knowledge, the short attention span, no life experience. But there are some other characteristics which I would like you to find here. So, successful reading is, can you find any? So we have some answers already. Okay. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm pretty sure we have more. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you already have predictable, pleasurable, meaningful, authentic. Okay. Any more? Mm-hmm. All right, let's check what we're supposed to have here. So, as you've mentioned, meaningful, engaging, yeah, well done. Mm-hmm. Pleasurable, predictable, adapted, authentic. And one more important thing, it should have relevant length. So when you're preparing some tasks for your students, please make sure, like, tick the box that my task is really meaningful for the age group. It's not about, I don't know, fishing or doing some horrible tasks on, I don't know, maths. Something meaningful for the age group. Has to be engaging. Storytelling, fairy tales, things like that. Otherwise, they will just zone out after the first 15 seconds. Pleasurable, again, we need to have fun. Predictable, this is a very important quality. So I've already mentioned several times that there should be, you should activate their schemata in order to help them, to prepare them for the reading or listening. Because if you know what's going to happen, it makes you feel safe. And safe environment is crucial for young learners. Otherwise, they will get too distracted, too nervous, and it will seriously hinder the success. Then, adapted, of course. Again, the level should be appropriate. Authentic. What can be authentic for a young learner? What do you think? What kind of reading can be authentic for a young learner? What is authentic? Have you got any ideas? Can you type them, please? We are not talking about reading Shakespeare or Harry Potter in English. So what is authentic for a young learner? What kind of reading? Poems. Yeah, so something meaningful. Songs, exactly, different chants. Super simple songs, we all love them. Okay. Yeah, completely agree. So things of that kind. Riddles could be, yes. All right, thank you. Very good ideas. And when we speak about real situations from life, yeah, it can be a conversation with their mum, with a friend, or they can, yes, they can watch cartoons, or they can ask for some simple things like, can I have some water? Or they can go traveling to fairy tale land. Yes, agree. Thank you. Well done. Okay, if we speak about planning a reading lesson and planning a listening lesson also, it usually consists of 3 parts. So you would have pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. Make sure you have all 3 of them because it will make your students feel more comfortable and will lead to success. So during the pre-reading stage, and I can't really stress that more, prediction, a lot of prediction, a lot of context setting activities, eliciting something from them. So everything you can do just to help them get involved into the situation you're going to read or listen about. During your reading, so you find some evidences for an accurate prediction. Remember, we go back 1 stage. And then we have reading or listening for gist, or skimming, and then scanning, and some details. Don't be too straightforward and start straightly from reading for gist. That's not going to work. And I've already mentioned that all the skills are connected. So your post-reading can be a short written task, some paraphrasing parts of the text, visualizing, so you can basically draw pictures with them, something which is a product of your reading to make it more meaningful. Otherwise, there's no point in doing that if you don't see the result. Okay. Some preparation activities. I've already mentioned that there's a task when they have to use some functional language and find the connection between some utterances. What I would suggest doing here, it works again for big classes and for small groups, and even for big classes it works much better. So you have to prepare some strips with 2 phrases, preferably of 2 colors. So the first one will be a starting phrase, the second one will be a reaction. So you should divide your students into 2 groups. Starting phrases, reaction. Ask them to stand up, talk to each other, and find the phrases which match. As soon as they do it, hold their hands together and just, they may take seats. If you have some fast finishes, ask them to continue this task and write some dialogue for that. If you have weaker students, so while the others will be writing dialogues, they will be still looking for each other. A lot of communication involved here, a lot of listening also, and reading too. So, another one, which will require some preparation from you, but you can use it with any content, depending on the topic of your lessons. So prepare big scene pictures and some sentences that describe them. So your focus can be different, can be colors or action verbs, depends on you. So provide your students with some blue tack or just glue, with strips of paper with sentences. So the task is, they just stand up and find the appropriate picture. So it's a good idea to have sentences about different pictures for one student. So they just walk around and stick the strips of paper to the correct picture. The strips should be of different colors, and it will help you to identify who's made a mistake. After that, you get, as you can see from the slide, so I have sentences from different colors, and I can see who's made a mistake. So which color has made a mistake? Which group? Have a look at the picture and read the sentences. So the team of which color is wrong here? So just the color. Yeah, absolutely. So not basketball, but baseball. All right. So another activity, as I've already mentioned, they can draw something. So just, again, 2 groups working on their own, give them a short text, and ask them to illustrate it. So they just draw pictures. It's very good for reading for details, as many details as they should draw as many details as possible, and then just give their drawings to the other team. The other team will have to write a story, and writing here will help them to prepare for the other part of the exam. They really love it because, wow, drawing at the English lesson is fun. Okay, so if we summarize what's been said, there are some certain recommendations for teaching receptive skills. So always start with a context setting. Prediction works, prediction helps and saves your lesson. Your instructions should be very clear, and sometimes you'll have to model. So just, you can do it yourself, or you can ask the stronger students to do this. Pre-teach all the blocking vocabulary. Make your students feel safe. Please avoid multitasking. And remember that there should be scaffolding there. And remember that your students are just young learners. So all the tasks and everything you do at the lesson should be taken from real life and should be relevant to the age and to their skills. So if you need more information about the handbooks or word lists, which are very helpful for exam preparation, please go to www.cambridgeenglish.org and you will find all the necessary information there. So, have you got any questions? Okay. And thank you very much for your active participation and for your answers and for being here with us today. And our next webinar is going to be on the 11th of November. And we're going to talk about productive skills, speaking and writing. So thank you very much.